Hi there, my name is Eric Miller, and in this video I'm going to cover 7 simple tricks for using light to create beautiful iPhone photos. So the first tip is to use soft light for shooting portraits. Now if you don't know what soft light is, don't worry. Soft light is simply when you have very soft shadows on your subject. Think of what the light looks like on a cloudy day when the sun is behind the clouds and it casts this very even light where the shadows don't have harsh lines to them but are very smooth and gentle. Soft light is great for shooting portraits of people. It's very flattering because it evens out any wrinkles they might have. It doesn't call attention to any features on their face because the shadows are very gentle and have soft edges to them. And in general, it just looks really, really nice on people. This portrait of this man here is taken on a cloudy day, and it's also a snowy day, so the light is just kind of bouncing around everywhere and just makes for a gentle, soft, even illumination. This portrait of this woman sitting in this unusual chair has a very soft light coming in from the left, and it's nice because you can clearly see everything in the photo, but there are no harsh shadows to distract you from what's happening in the photo. So the next tip I want to tell you is about the opposite kind of light. It's about hard light and how you can use hard light to create shadow patterns. To understand hard light, you can think about what light looks like on a sunny day where the shadows have very crisp edges to them and the difference between light and dark is quite extreme. This is great for capturing patterns of these shadows to make interesting abstract photos, like this photo here of these stairs around this oil drum. You don't even quite know what's happening at first. You just see that there are these cool patterns, and then you might understand after a while that the patterns are being cast by those stairs there in the bottom part of the photo. Or in this photo here, where I noticed that the light coming in from these windows created this very interesting shadow pattern on the floor. So I thought those shadows would bring some additional interest to this photo. Another thing that's good to know about a photo like this is that it can be a little tricky to set your exposure because you have very light areas and very dark areas, and you'll learn all about exposure in the next video. Another thing that you can use shadows for is leading lines. And if you don't know what leading lines are, don't worry. They're simply lines that help draw your eye or direct your eye from the front of the photo to the back of the photo. Like in this photo here of these two people, the people are pretty important, but their shadows are also very important. They help lead our eyes to the people, which are the central subject of this photo. Here's another example of how shadows can make great leading lines for your photos. The sun is directly behind this sculpture that's in the middle of this frozen lake, and it's casting these shadows down in front of me. Those lines help draw our eye to the person and that sculpture there. And that's my third tip for how you can use light to create an amazing iPhone photo. Now in those last two photos, the direction of the light was very important to help us create leading lines. That leads me to my fourth tip, which is to use side lighting to add dimensionality to your iPhone photos. Now, side lighting is simply when the light comes in from one of the two sides of the photos, either the left side or the right side. Like in this photo here, most of the light is coming in from the right side of the photo, from the windows in this library, which is in Boston. And because that light is coming in from the right side, it really adds a lot of dimension to the ceiling in this room. You can see all the nooks and crannies of that ceiling. You can get a real sense for the texture of that ceiling, and that's what side lighting is great for. In this next example here, which is of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., side lighting really helps draw out the three-dimensionality of this statue. If you take a look at his hand there, you can see how the light is coming in from the left side and hitting the top of his knuckles, and that hand really looks three-dimensional to us. The reason side lighting is so effective is because it casts those shadows, which help make these objects look three-dimensional. My fifth tip is to capture the magical light of golden hour. Now, golden hour is that short period of time right before the sun sets. What makes golden hour so beautiful is that you get this beautiful golden light, which is why it's called golden hour, but you also get these really long shadows. Like in this photo here of this man walking down this street in downtown St. Paul, look at how long his shadow is. This was taken right before the sunset. There's this very golden light in the air, and we get this beautiful long shadow, which also acts as a leading line, like I was just talking about in my last tip. Golden time can be a great time to take photos of things like landscapes. Like in this photo I shot in Canada earlier this year. Because the sun is so low in the sky, the tracks that the car or maybe the tractor has made are really emphasized here because they are in shadow. If I had shot this photo in the middle of the day, you wouldn't be able to see those tracks as clearly, but because it was golden hour, I get these really nice shadows in those tracks, and I also get this beautiful golden light on the photo, which is very pleasing to the eye. It's really hard to take a bad photo shot at golden hour. Now, most of us as iPhone photographers don't own any kind of fancy lighting equipment. We're just working with the sun or whatever kind of light is available to us at any given point in the day. But you can still have an effect over the way the light hits your subjects, and that is my sixth tip, which is that if you can't move the light, move the subject or move your camera to create a more interesting photo. Earlier this year, I took a trip to Devil's Tower, which is in Wyoming. It is part of an extinct volcano. It's this beautiful rocky formation. In this photo here, you can see that it looks pretty cool. The sun is directly behind me, and we call this front lighting because the shadow is lit from the front. But watch what happens when I walked around Devil's Tower. In this next photo, you can see I'm partway around the tower, and I think this looks a lot more interesting. Here we have a little bit of side lighting, and you can see the ridges of the rock. You really feel like you can touch them. It has a lot more texture than in that first photo. I kept walking around the tower, and now you can see that it is somewhat backlit. The sun is kind of at a 3/4 angle over to the left. In the end, I made this photo where Devil's Tower is mostly side lit. I really liked the dimensionality that you get. It made the rock formation feel very tactile, like I wanted to touch it. And it's a good example of how shooting a subject from a different angle can make it look really different because of the way the light hits that subject. Even though you can't necessarily change the position of the light, by paying attention to where the light is coming from and what it is doing, you can make a better photo. My seventh tip is to use your environment to modify the light. Let me show you a demo so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Here's a video I shot of myself in the courtyard of the apartment complex where I live. I'm going to go ahead and freeze it so we can analyze the light for a moment. Take a look at the building behind me, and you can see that the shadows tell us that the light is coming from the upper right. The sun is up in the sky on the right-hand side of the frame, and it's casting light down, which makes the shadows fall down to the left. But now take a look at the light on my face. Indeed, there's a little bit of light on the right-hand side of my face, but actually the left-hand side of my face is much brighter than the right-hand side of my face, which is confusing since we know the light is coming from the upper right. I'm going to go ahead and play the video, and you'll see that what's happening is that the light is reflecting off of these buildings over here. And it's reflecting off of those buildings and bouncing back onto my face, which is why my face looks so much brighter on the left-hand side. That's what I mean when I say you can use your environment to modify the light. If I had stood out in the direct sunlight, I would have had a very hard light on my face, but because I like to use soft light for photos of people, instead I went to a spot where I was standing in the shade, but I still had beautiful light on my face because it was reflecting off the buildings just off to the left side of the frame. If I rotate around, now the light is reflecting directly onto my face and I'm front lit, and if I rotate around even further, I'm side lit again, just from the other side. So there you have it, 7 simple tricks for using light to create beautiful iPhone photos.